What's going on, Space Monkeys? Welcome to Political Fight Club. I'm Robert Durden. We're going to continue with Dreamland today by Sam Quinones. This is chapter 49, I think. The Criminal Case, page 264. It'll be split into 2 episodes. And we're almost done with the book. We're getting to part 3 after this chapter, and then it's a really short part, and then we're done. So I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. We'll continue on page 264. Late at night on October 24, 2006, John Brownlee, the U.S. Attorney in Western Virginia, received a phone call at home. On the line was Michael J. Elston. Elston worked at the U.S. Department of Justice, while Alberto Gonzales was Attorney General for President George W. Bush. Elston said he was calling on behalf of a Purdue Pharma executive. The investigation Brownlee had approved into Purdue Pharma and its campaign to market OxyContin was then 4 years old. The case was assigned to the tiny Abington, Virginia office near Kentucky and West Virginia, a coal mining region where hundreds of people had died of OxyContin overdoses. The office issued hundreds of subpoenas, scanned stacks of documents into a database, and interviewed dozens of people. By 2006, Brownlee's staff believed they had evidence that the company had knowingly misbranded OxyContin as virtually non-addictive. In Purdue focus groups, doctors worried about OxyContin's addictiveness but yearned for a long-lasting and less addictive painkiller. The company that produced a non-addictive painkiller, quote, would dominate the pain management market, and that is exactly what Purdue tried to do, Brownlee testified later. Purdue marketed and promoted OxyContin as less addictive, less subject to abuse and diversion, and less likely to cause tolerance and withdrawal than any other pain medications. Despite its ad claims, Purdue provided no study to the FDA, investigators later noted, that supported those claims. The company taught its sales force that oxycodone was harder to extract and thus abuse than other drugs, though the company's own studies showed that wasn't true. In 1995 tests, the company found that 68% of the oxycodone could be extracted when the pill was crushed and liquefied and drawn through cotton into a syringe. In fact, addicts I spoke with said it was easier to extract the drug from an OxyContin pill than from other, milder opiate painkillers such as Vicodin or Lortab, because OxyContin didn't include anything but oxycodone, while the others also contained acetaminophen or Tylenol. The company's sales staff said in promotional meetings across the United States that OxyContin's 12-hour timed-release formula meant there were fewer peaks and troughs in euphoria when compared with immediate-release opiates. This was a crucial point. Intense euphoria followed by an intense crash is what produces the cravings leading to addiction to opiates. If OxyContin didn't cause these extreme peaks and troughs, then its salespeople could claim to physicians that the pills carried less risk of addiction than short-acting opiates. I spoke with several doctors who said the graphs showing OxyContin's purportedly mild peaks and troughs of oxycodone in blood plasma were among the most convincing data that Purdue salesmen produced. But federal investigators later said that these graphs were incorrect and falsely exaggerated the difference in euphoric effect between Oxy and its short-acting competitors. Purdue, quote, phonied up those graphs to show a steady level of oxycodone in blood plasmas, said Paul Hanley, a New York City plaintiff's attorney who brought a class action lawsuit against Purdue. The true graph shows an incredible spike, then boom, you go straight to the bottom. Purdue supervisors taught salespeople to tell doctors that patients using up to 60 milligrams of OxyContin could stop abruptly without withdrawal symptoms. However, federal investigators found that company officials knew of a 2001 British study of osteoporosis patients who described suffering withdrawal when they stopped using OxyContin. Even after receiving this information, federal investigators wrote, supervisors and employees decided not to write up the findings because of a concern that it might, quote, add to the current negative press surrounding OxyContin. As I was writing this book, I contacted Purdue's media representatives requesting an interview with someone at the company about the 2006 criminal case. I inquired about its ad campaign and about how OxyContin was selling lately, among other things. I asked also for interviews with Dr. David Haddix, author of The Concept of Pseudo-Addiction, and with Dr. Curtis Wright, who had been part of approving Purdue's application while he was at the FDA. A company spokesman sent the following, quote, "For more than 30 years, Purdue Pharma has developed opioid medications to alleviate the debilitating pain experienced by millions of people. As leaders in our field, we are acutely aware of the public health risks that can arise from the misuse and abuse of these medications. We're working with policymakers and healthcare professionals throughout the country to reduce the risks involving opioids without compromising the medical care of people suffering from chronic pain. Purdue is developing innovative technologies to create pain medicines in new forms that include abuse-deterrent properties, making them unattractive to drug abusers. These medicines are designed to provide patients with pain relief when taken as directed, while also deterring abuse by snorting an injection. These new approaches do not prevent abuse, but they are a step in the right direction. We encourage a transition to abuse-deterrent technologies over time, but it must be accompanied by greater societal efforts to reduce the demand for non-medical use of prescription medications." In 2005, the federal prosecutors in Abington, Virginia, who were preparing the case against Purdue, subpoenaed Dr. Herschel Jick up at Boston University. A deputy sheriff delivered the papers. Dr. Jick ignored the subpoena at first. He was too busy to be bothered. Then a federal prosecutor called. They needed him to testify before a grand jury, she said, something to the effect, Dr. Jick later remembered, of a drug company using his 1980 letter to the New England Journal of Medicine as proof that their drugs weren't addictive. Herschel Jick was perplexed. He had no idea what she was talking about. What did all this have to do with him? "I told them I wouldn't go," he told me. "But they threatened to put me in jail, so I schlepped down there. They had me on the stand asking me irrelevant and obtuse questions for 2 hours." Dr. Jick then returned to Boston, and with that, he exited our story, his tiny letter to the editor in the back pages of the New England Journal of Medicine having helped ignite, quite unintentionally, a revolution in American medicine. So we'll continue with the chapter to the end. We're on the bottom of page 266 right now, and after that we'll be done with part 2. Hope you're enjoying the book, guys. Keep fighting that good fight out there.